The problem is Anthony Fauci put $500 million of our dollars into that vaccine. He owns half the patent. I agree with you. There was tremendous faith in vaccination during that period. But when you grew up, I grew up, Alan, we had 3 vaccines, and all of them were deemed as necessary. They were feared diseases. Today's kids have to take 72 vaccines, 72 doses of 16 vaccines in order to stay in school. And that explosion of new vaccination came in 1989, right after the passage of VICA, Vaccine Act. The Vaccine Act gave blanket immunity from liability to vaccine companies. And so those companies all of a sudden looked around and they said, holy cow, now we've got a product where we are completely excused from the highest cost from that afflicts every other medical product, which is the downstream liability for injuries. That's the biggest cost for every medicine. Not only that, vaccines have another exemption that most people don't know about. They are the only medical product that does not have to be safety tested against a placebo. And that exemption is an artifact of CDC's legacy as the Public Health Service, which was a quasi-military agency, which is why people at CDC have military ranks like Surgeon General and they wear uniforms. The vaccine program was conceived as a national security defense against biological attacks on our country, and they wanted to make sure that if the Russians attacked us with a biological agent, anthrax or something like that, that we could quickly formulate a vaccine and deploy it to 200 million American civilians without regulatory impediments. They said, if we call it a medicine, we're going to have to test it, and that takes 5 years to do double-blind placebo testing. So let's call it something else. We'll call it a biologic, and we'll exempt biologics from safety testing. So not a single one of the vaccines, the 72 vaccines now administered to our children, have ever been tested against a placebo. And I, in fact, sued HHS in 2016 and said, show me any placebo studies that you have for any vaccines, and they were unable to do so. None of them have been tested, and you don't have to sue them like I did. Anybody can go on their cell phone and look up manufacturer's insert, hepatitis B vaccine, Gardasil vaccine, polio vaccine. Do you know how many days the current polio vaccine, do you know how many days it was safety tested for, Alan? 48 hours. The hepatitis B vaccine, the Glaxo version, was 4 days. The Merck version, 5 days. That means that if the baby they gave that to had a seizure on day 6, it never happened. If the baby died on day 6, it never happened. If the baby got food allergies that were diagnosed 2 years later, it never happened. If the baby got autism, which is not diagnosed till 4 years of age, 4.2 years of age, it never happened. Autoimmune diseases, you cannot see those if you have these short-term studies, and you can't see any risk if you don't test against a placebo. And my question is, nobody knows, because of that, nobody knows the risk profile for any vaccine that is currently on the schedule. And that means nobody can say with any scientific certainty that that vaccine is averting more injuries and deaths than it's causing. And my question is, how in the heck can we be mandating to children that they take a medical product for which we do not know the risks? And to me, that is criminal. And you know, we started this discussion by talking about how do you avoid the whole discussion about mandating vaccines? The way that you do that is you have a transparent process where people see that the vaccine is going to be tested. They see that it's tested fairly against a placebo, that there's long-term tests that are going to be able to spot all of these difficulties. And that it's transparent and open. And yet, what we've seen from the current group of COVID vaccines is none of that's happening. They're skipping key parts of the test. A Moderna vaccine, which is the lead candidate, skipped the animal testing altogether. When they came to human testing, they tested it on 45 people. They had a high dose group of 15 people, a medium dose group of 15 people, and a low dose group of 15 people. In the low dose group, one of the people got so sick from the vaccine they had to be hospitalized. That's 6%. In the high dose group, 3 people got so sick they had to be hospitalized. That's 20%. Mm-hmm. They're going ahead and making 2 billion doses of that vaccine. And by the way, the people that they test them on, Alan, are not typical Americans. They use what they call exclusionary criteria. They are only giving these vaccines in these tests that they're doing to the healthiest people. If you look at their exclusionary criteria, you cannot be pregnant, you cannot be overweight, you must have never smoked a cigarette, you must have never vaped, you must have no respiratory problems in your family, you can't suffer asthma, you can't have diabetes, you can't have rheumatoid arthritis or any autoimmune disease. There has to be no history of seizure in your family. These are the people they're testing the vaccine on. But that's not who they're going to give them to. Mm-hmm. They're going to go, what happens? These people are like the Avengers. They're like Superman. You can shoot them with a bullet and they won't go down. But what happens when they give them to the typical American, Sally Six-Pack and Joe Bag of Donuts, who's 50 pounds overweight and has diabetes? What is going to happen then? You're not going to see 20%. You're going to see a lot of people dropping dead. These people lost consciousness. They had to go to hospital. They had huge fevers. And they're the healthiest people in the world. So any other medicine, Alan, that had that kind of profile in its original phase 1 study would be DOA. The problem is, Anthony Fauci put $500 million of our dollars into that vaccine. He owns half the patent. He has 5 guys who are working for him who are entitled to collect royalties from that. So you have a corrupt system, and now they've got a vaccine that is too big to fail. And instead of saying, hey, this was a terrible, terrible mistake, they're saying, we are going to order 2 billion doses of this. And you've got to understand, Alan, with these COVID vaccines, these companies are playing with house money. They're not spending anything on it, and they have no liability. So if they kill 20 people or 200 people, 2,000 people in their clinical trials, big deal. They have zero liability. And guess what? They've wasted money, their money, because we're giving them the money to play with. Oh, people like me and people in our community are looking at this process, and we're saying, whatever comes out of that process, we don't want to take it, because we're seeing how the sausage gets made, and it's really sickening. No medical product in the world would be able to go forward with the profile that Moderna has.